So we are on, we just got to the top of Ayin Beis Amid Aleph, or the bottom of Ayin Aleph Amid Beis. But let's just refresh our memory, because this is going to be a very, it's going to go through the Shittas over and over again. We're going to go over the Machlekes back on the Mishnah on Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph. First of all, we had the Machlekes between Rabbi Kiva and the Tanakama. Rabbi Kiva holds Hamoicher Ba'ayin Yafa Moicher, and the Rabbanan hold Ba'ayin Ra. Lagabe, that was Lagabe, someone who sold a field. Does it include the bar vidus? Does it include if he said, and he said the words everything goes together with Abisha Amalei Kol Masha B'Seicha. So Rabbi Kiva says you have to buy a derech. When you buy the owner retains for himself these things. He has to buy a derech because he's moichabai and yafa. The Chum disagree. That we had in the Seifa of that Mishnah, where we talked about hamakdish es asada, hikdish es kula. So this is a second machlekes, not necessarily the same. It's not necessarily the same Tana who was chaylik, the Tanakama that was chaylik in Rabbi Kiva. This is the second Tana of the Mishnah, who says when you makdish, you hikdish es kula, meaning that a person is, even according to Rabbi Kiva, even according to there's an ayin yafa in hektish. When you makdish something, you do it liberally. You include everything that's involved, meaning even this bar of redus that would normally not be included, right? We're not going back on the machlekes Rabbi Kiva and the Rav Shimon about the path. Now we're going back to the original din at the beginning of the Mishnah, that someone who sells, for everyone who's confused, all the way back on the Mishnah on the beginning of the previous block. We're just reviewing the Mishnah itself, because that's what the Gemara is going to be talking about. So we had the machlekes about in the end of the Mishnah, if someone is makdish a sada. So we had said in the beginning of the Mishnah that someone who sells a sada doesn't sell the bar and the gas and the shevach. We said if you're makdish including everything. You do so with an ayin yafa, and that's and then Rav Shimon said in that, Rav Shimon makdish sada loyakdish also esachruv sad nashek. So Rav Shimon said two things. First of all, he said that when you're makdish, you're not makdish everything together with it. But he does make one exception, and he does say the sad and hashikma and the mature important trees are going to be nikna together. So the Gemara then quoted Rav Huna. Rav Huna says that if you machar karka, you sell karka, and you keep for yourself shtei ilanis, he keeps the karka along with those shtei ilanis, because in that case a person is he needs to keep the karka in order to support those two ilanis, because he doesn't want to lose it. That when it dies, he's not going to be able to keep his two ilanis. And the Gemara wanted to say at this point, so the Gemara said, but this is going to be a problem. We want to say this is going to be even the chayra. This is shver. This is not like Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says hamoicher is ba'ayin yafu moicher. So we want to say no. This case is different, like we said, because Rabbi Kiva would understand that in this case the person doesn't want to lose his tree at the end. When it dies, he wants to be able to replant it. But the Gemara then asked from Rav Shimon. We had a problem that a person doesn't sell the Sadan Hashikma. I'm sorry, when the person is makdish, He's not. The only thing he's makdish the sod. He doesn't. He's not makdish whatever comes along with it. He's only makdish the sad nashik. And we explain that the reason is because we didn't explain. The Rishon himself explained. He brought a brisa. But Tani Allah, Amr Shimon, Matam Hayel Yankim Isad the Hektish. Because they get sustenance from the karka, which he was makdish, right? The person was makdish to karka. So we say he has to also be makdish to sadna shikma, the mature, distinguished trees, because they're going to get sustenance from that ground that is hektish. Now, if you hold a person is mashayir when he gives a sada, so he's also going to, when he gives a tree, he's also going to be mashayir the land that would support it. So why would, according to what we're saying, if Rav Huna says that you're always mashayir the land that you need for your tree, so why wouldn't he be mashayir the land in this case? And therefore it wouldn't become hektish. So we say no. So therefore Rav Shimon is going according to Rabbi Kiva, who holds that your hamaycha ba'ayin yafa meicher, and Rabbi Kiva Taka couldn't be like Rav Huna, and Rav Huna is going like Rav Shimon. I'm sorry, Rav Huna is going like the Rabbanan, who are chaylik on Rabbi Akiva in the machlokes of ba'ayin roa ba'ayin yaf. Okay, that is really what we're up to. So now we're at the top of Ayin Beis Zaman Aleph. So again, I prefaced this to Lucy before we started that this is a difficult Gemara, and we're going to be learning it together because I found it very difficult as well. So can we really say that the way we've come out, that we're trying to line it up? The Rav Huna is saying pshat in the Rabbanan, and Rav Shimon in our Mishnah is holding like Rav Shimon at the end of the Mishnah, who explained that he held that when you makdish a sada, you're not being you're being makdish the sada, the tree, the individual trees along with it, because otherwise they're going to be yonik from hektish. We said that has to be like a Kiva who says ba'ayin yafa meicher, and therefore he's not going to retain the karka that he needs in order to keep the tree going, which is what Rav Huna would say. Right? It's a very similar concept. Rav Huna says that a person, when he sells a tree, when he keeps a tree for himself, he keeps what he needs in order to sustain that tree. If it dies, he'll be able to replant it. And that's not like Rav Shimon, who says that when you are makdish a tree, when you makdish a karka, you are makdish the tree with it because you're not going to retain for yourself what you need for your, and you're not going to retain for yourself what you need to keep those trees going. But we have a different problem that's going to come out if, like what we're trying to say, that the reason for Shimon why he says you have to give up your trees because you gave up the land that would sustain it, meaning because it's going to make that the tree is being yonik from hektish because you gave it the hektish. And you say that's going to Reb Kiva because he holds ba'ayin yafa meicher. Tanya hektish loisha ilonish mimata asara lebeisa. If someone was makdish 3 trees at the rate of 10 trees to a beisa, so a beisa is, I believe, about 2,500 square amas, meaning, and generally you have 10 trees. The ideal amount of trees in a beisa is 10. So each tree has 250 square amas for itself. That's the proper density for a field. It's treated that he was makdish the karka and when we say the ilana shebeneim, it means the small trees, the trees that are just starting to grow, that we would not, they were not considered to be, they were not part of these 3 ilanas that he gave. So he gave 3 I shouldn't say full-size trees because these are trees that are just starting that are not yet full size, but they're a normal size tree. So the question is, when you're makdish that those trees, we've come across a number of times. This is back from before that three trees bring along with it karka, but it has to be a typical amount of trees in a density that's appropriate for that amount of karka in order to also get you the karka. So we're saying someone who did this properly, he gave three trees that were really part of an orchard. They were the proper amount. Like we said, if you have one or two, it's not an orchard. You don't get anything with it. But if you do three, then you get the land with it. So therefore, this is going to be considered that he got the land with it. It's three trees that are appropriately spaced. Lefikach. And therefore, since he was makdish, that karka, paida is beizera chayim esayrim b'chamisha shekel kasem. There is a chayk. The Torah gives us a specific amount that when someone was makdish karka, how much does he pay for it? And the amount is you do chamishim shekel kesef, 50 shekel for a beis zerach chayim for a field of from which you would plant a chayim. So this person. So let's go back on what we're saying over here. This person who gave three trees includes with it the karka. Now it becomes that he's being makdish karka, and the Torah has a specific rule about exactly how much your paida. The Torah has a chayk. This is the amount you pay 50 shekel for a chaymer sa'irim. So depending on how much land it is, you're going to pay for that ratio of 50 shekel. Pachas mikani yosef. Okay. However, if the amount of trees, these three trees, are less than three trees for less than, let's say, one tree for every 250 square amas. Yes, okay, no, there's more than one tree for every 250 square amas. Let's say it's three trees and 500 square amas, so they're more densely packed. So in either of those cases, this is not a sada, this is not an orchard of trees. These are then becoming individual trees that he's being makdish, because it's not the appropriate amount for an orchard the way you would set up an orchard. So we're makdish the karka together with it. Loy hikdish, loy hakarka. You're not makdish both the karka underneath. And not the small beginnings of trees that might be in between them. Those don't come along unless it's part of an orchard. Then what's the blossoming trees that are coming out of the ground, the acorns that are sprouting, those don't go along either. Okay, we were still saying this brisa we didn't get to the sheet of Rav Shimon that makes that he can't be saying like Rabbi Kiva. Lefikach. What's going to be the nafkamina? So that what's going to happen in this case where he wasn't makdish the karka? Lefikach. He's going to, since the karka did not come along with the hektish, because this wasn't an orchard, but rather was individual trees, he's not going to have the chayk of how the Torah says your paida karka, but rather he's going to be paida the trees individually according to how much they're worth. Even if he would be makdish the ilanis, and we said since they're not in the form of an orchard, the karka doesn't go along with it. But then he went specifically, he was makdish the karka separately. He's going to do the two things separately. When he's going to go back to be paida, we don't now say, oh, now it becomes karka with trees on it, and now it's just the karka, and it's going to have the regular din of karka. This guy's going to have to be paid of the karka separately at the mandated amount that the Torah says, and then he's going to have to be paid of the trees that are on that ground separately. So money. Now, who is this like? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Kiva, if you'll say that this brisa that we just said is like Rabbi Kiva, someone who's meicher is Moicha Ba'ayin Yafa V'chol Shekein Makdish. Right, in our Mishnah, we brought the Tanakama of the Sefer of our Mishnah said that even though we have the machlekes, even though we said at the beginning, the Tanakama of our Mishnah said that when you sell a field, it doesn't sell the bar v'gas v'dos, but when you makdish, then those are included. So being makdish includes more than being meicha. So Rabbi Kiva, who says meicha ba'ayin yafa meicha, certainly when you makdish, you're going to include more. So how could you say when you makdish over here that it doesn't include, when you makdish the three trees, it's not going to also include the karka? He says even if Rabbi Kiva says, we said that according to Rabbi Kiva that if you sell even 2 trees, you get karka with it that could support the land. So certainly when you're going to sell 3 trees, even if it's not precisely the amount of to be an orchard, it should still include the land. So that can't be. The Gemara, if you'll say the Rabbanan who are chaylik on Rabbi Kiva and say a moicher is ba'ayin raw moicher, so that would make sense. So it's saying that when you makdish the trees, it doesn't include the land. Ha'amri moicher who to be in ba'ayin raw moicher, ava makdish ba'ayin yafa makdish. But in our Mishnah we said that that's all legabi mechir, but not legabi makdish. It means at least the Rabbanan of Rabbi Shimon. El Pshita Reb Shimon. So Elamai must be Reb Shimon at the end, right? At the second part of our Mishnah, we said it was a machlekes between the Tanakama of the Sefer of the Mishnah and Reb Shimon. The Reb Shimon says, when you're makdish, you're not makdish the bar of vidus and everything that comes along with it. The only thing that's hukdish is the sikma and the chruv. So Zaktuma, Rav Shimon Ali b'Dama. Who is Rav Shimon going like in the Sefer of the Mishnah? Meaning in the machlokes, we have the machlokes in the Sefer of the Mishnah. Who's he going like in the machlokes between Rabbi Kiva and the Tanakama of the Mishnah in that machlokes? He Ali b'De Rabbi Kiva. If we're saying he's going according to Rabbi Kiva, who says Amoicha ba'ayin yafa moicha ha'amoicha ba'ayin yafa moicha v'choshchei makdish. How could Rav Shimon, again, we have the same problem. How could Rav Shimon say that his hektish doesn't include the sad according to Rabbi Kiva? Certainly, according to Rabbi Kiva, if a meicher is ba'ayin yafa, certainly a makdish is ba'ayin yafa makdish should include the sada. Ela pshita ali b'derabban. Elamai, Rav Shimon must hold like the rabbanim because of Rav Shimon. Ki heicha the meicher ba'ayin yafa ba'ayin ra meicher makdish nami ba'ayin ra makdish. Umashayir ara. Then he's saying that he's saying like the Rabbanan of Rabbi Kiva that you're meicher ba'ayin ra, and he holds that extends even though it's true that hegdish is more, a person is more ba'ayin yafa by hegdish than by mecher, but he holds mecher is ba'ayin ra, and even though hektish is more ba'ayin yafa, but it's still ba'ayin ra, just like mecha. Doesn't have to be that because it's more liberal, it's more yafa, that it is yafa, and therefore he keeps he's going to keep the karka for himself when he's makdish the 3 trees. But the problem is that this is going to be a stira to Rav Huna, right? We wanted to say Rav Huna is going like the Rabbanon, right. Rav Huna is going like the Rabbanon, and not like Rav Shimon. But Rav Shimon, who says that a makdish is treated like a moicha, he doesn't keep the karka. You see that even someone who's moicha, we want to say Rav Huna is going like the Rabbanan, but
Rav Shimon, we're talking on.
no, I'm saying, but Rav Huna, we want to say goes like
Originally,
Rabban.
right,
Rabban Keneged Rabbi Akiva. But we're saying Rav Shimon went like the Rabban and Keneged the Rabbi Akiva, right? They're
right.
saying Ba'ayin Ra, and even so, he says when he's going to be he's going to have to be makdish the chruv and the sikma because he's not going to keep for himself the land because and therefore it's going to be yoinik from hektish. If you hold like the Rabbanim, why should that be a problem? If you say according to Rav Huna, Rav Shimon, if you hold ba'ayin ra meicher, you shouldn't have a problem. You're going to keep the land for yourself. But Rav Shimon very specifically says that you do have to when you makdish land, the sikma, you also are makdish the sikma and the chruv because otherwise you're going to have the problem that it's being yoinik from land that you are makdish. But according to Rav Huna, it shouldn't be a problem because you're keeping for yourself the land as well.
Well, and our whole question is basically now we're saying that we just proved that Rav Shimon holds like the Rabbanan, the Ba'ayin Ra Meifer.
Right.
And yet
And we
right,
were trying to justify Rav Huna by saying that he also holds like that he's his shita, that he said
you
that when
keep
you
the
sell when you makdish two trees, I'm sorry, not when you makdish, when you sell
you
two trees, you
keep
keep
the
the
character.
land in order
Right.
to sustain it. But Rav Shimon, who was saying holds like those Rabbanan that was saying Rav Huna's saying like
Yeah.
he he says not like that legabe hektish because he says you don't when you he says when you're makdish the two trees you don't get the karka to sustain it. You were makdish that anyway, even though a meicher is ba'ayin raw meicher, but that you give away. You don't keep for yourself. So we have a problem in Rav Huna. Rav Huna will want to say like the Rabban, and Rav Shimon, in spite of holding like the Rabban, still has this problem that he says that you're not going to have the land to sustain it. Rav Huna says you do have the land to sustain it. So who is Rav Huna saying like? It's a lot of steps.
Even though Rav Huna's case is talking about a Machira, not Makdish.
Well, oh, so you're saying
Rav Shimon has a specific reason over there by
there's more of a you say it could be Rav Shimon feels that there's more of a ba'ayin yafa makdish on the karka that goes on. Even though maybe
No, Rav Shimon holds that he does say that Ayin Ra, but by Hektish is the reason why you
but at this point the Gemara is assuming that Rav Shimon holds that there's no difference between a makdish and a meicher. He's saying both of them are ba'ayin ra. He's
right.
chayik on the Tanakh on the Rabbanan of the Sefer of our Mishnah who say that makdish is better. Makdish, if anything, is better. It's not. It's more yafa, but Rav Shimon doesn't agree with that. He says it's the same. Back to the Gemara, which is really this is really going to be the Gemara's next question. What you're pointing out. The elakasha hoil v'yankim istay hektish. How could it be if Rav Shimon holds that someone who is makdish is makdish ba'ayin ra? So why taka is it that he's giving away, he's being makdish the field that he needs for his sada, which is really what you were just asking, right? If we're saying that he holds ba'ayin raw, so how does it make sense? Why does he taka paskin that why does he make this exception that even though he says everything else becomes hektish, does not he's not makdish anything besides the actual field, but he does say the stay sigma because they're going to they're going to be yonik from his field, that from the field that he was makdish. Let's say that he wasn't makdish that either. He wasn't makdish what's needed to support his trees. Ella. So now the Gemara is going to be chayzer from this. Ella Rav Shimon l'divreim derabbanan ka'amru. So now I'm going to say that this whole thing that Rav Shimon said that that the two trees are going to become hektish he was not saying his own shita. He doesn't really think. He really holds ba'ayin ram makdish, and therefore all he was makdish. No, ba'ayin ra. Rav Shimon holds.
He does hold like the Rabbanan?
Yeah.
Oh,
he holds like the Rabbanan.
Okay.
Rav Shimon said two things that we was chayv. He said two things. The first part is his basic distinction. The Rabbanan said someone who is makdish the bar, the gas, and the shaivach. And Rav Shimon said, no, you're not makdish anything. So he's really the ba'ayin raw makdish. That's his basic shita. But he said this exception, and it was a strange exception. Everyone says that usually when you're makdish or you moicher something, it doesn't include these two trees because they're their own thing. He says those get schlepped along, even though I am more ba'ayin raw makdish, but this does go along because you have this specific problem. But then we got stuck. Like what is the other? If he holds ba'ayin raw, why doesn't he also keep for himself the karka to sustain them? So we're saying this was all a mistake, and when you think about it, this is much easier to swallow the way the Gemara is going to say it. That those two sadas, he was not saying that he really holds that they're hektish. What he's saying is l'divrei. So that's what the Gemara says. Ella Rishimon l'divrei derabbanan ka'amru. He was just saying on the second part of what he said that the two trees, the sikma and the churuv, that they're going to become hektish. He's saying, according to you, they should be hektish. And therefore, he's being mishayer the karka that he needs to make sure that his trees that he's keeping are not going to be yonik from hektish. But he's saying, lididchu, according to you, you hold that a makdish is more ba'ayin yafa than a meicha. You should. He can't be makdish. You say he can't. He can't be makdish anything except for these two things. That meaning that of course, so we're going according to you're saying that you're going like Rabbi Kiva, that you're makdish ba'ayin yafa, but he should have. According to you, he should have been makdish the karka that would be needed to sustain those trees. So those should be accepted. For Amalei Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan say, Loishna. No, everything is hukdash. He's considered to be just like a noisen matana. A noisen matana he gives not only he'll give, even though it will wind him up in trouble, like we say, Lagabi, someone who gives a karka and he keeps for himself a bar, he's going to end up that he's going to need to buy back from the person who he gave the bar to. He's going to have to buy the person who gave the karka to. He's going to have to buy back the path to get him to the bar. So the same thing over here. They hold he's considered to be everything. Everything is ba'ayin yafa, and there's not going to be an afkamina, whether it's a bar or a shaivach, or whether it's a sikma and a churuv. Everything is going to be hukdish together with the field. Okay, so now we can go. We don't have to So l'chayr, it's pashut from here that Rav Huna is not going like the Rabbanon. I'm saying it's not. I'm sorry that our whole problem was that who is Rav Huna going to be like, and we said we had a problem that because Rav Shimon comes to the conclusion that when you makdish the asada, you're also being makdish the chruv and the sikma, because otherwise it's going to be being yainik from asada of hektish. So, but we say that was never what Rav Shimon was saying. Rav Shimon was just making an argument against the Rabbanon, against against his cholkim. So now we could go back and say the Rav Huna, and that was the problem. That then poisoned. How could Rav Shimon say like the Rabbanon? So now we can go. So Rav Shimon. So we don't have to say that Rav Huna is only like the Rabbanon, not like Rabbi Kiva,
Right.
because it wasn't working because of Rav Shimon. But we're saying Rav Shimon never really said that. So now we can go back to saying that Rav Huna is machalik. He says while it's true Rabbi Kiva holds ba'ayin yafa meicher, but that's only in the case of a bar of a das where it's not going to affect things long term. The person's not worried he's going to lose his rights. But in the case of a tree, where a person wants, when he gives away his karka, he doesn't want to ruin his tree that he has, that he wants to be able to replant it. There, even Rabbi Kiva will be maida that he's not so much of a ba'ayin yafa meicher. Zok the Gemara. But Mayu Kimtala. So we wanted to explain the Mishnah, them say the Brisa. We had brought this Brisa as on Amud Aleph as a raya that we would try to say as a raya that Rav Shimon can't hold like Rabbi Akiva. He must hold like the Rabbanu Chaylik on Rabbi Akiva. So we're going to go back to that Brisa. But Mayu Kimtala, Rav Shimon. We wanted to say that Brisa is going like Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon is the one who says that a makdish is not makdish the karka along with it. And that's Rav Shimon is the Mount Amr in our Mishnah says like that. In fact, the Gemara aim is safer. What about the safer of that Brisa? Where the Brisa says, if he did it in two steps, he first was makdish the trees, and then he was makdish the karka. In that case, he has to have the worst of both worlds. He doesn't get the din that everything is all together, and you use the Torah's mandated way of cheshboning what the pigeon is, but rather you have to do the ilanis on their own, and then you do on the karka because he was makdish the karka separately. He's paid it separately. Suck the Gemara. The Reb Shimon. If we're going like Reb Shimon, leza basal pigeon, benifraku avgavarayu. Why don't we say that everything is treated together? Because at the time of pigeon, they were both owned, both the karka. At the beginning, they were hoktish separately. What time is it? Give me another 5 minutes, and we'll try to just get this question. What we're saying, if we hold like Rav Shimon, let's go after the time of pigeon, when you're going to be paid. At that point, you own both the trees and the land, and let it all be nifta together. Let's say that he should have the din that land is nifta at 50 shekel and not have to pay for the trees separately. Because we know the Rav Shimon holds like this, that you go bus at the time of pigeon. The Tanya. How do we know that someone who bought a field from his father, right? Yaakov and Reuven. Yaakov had a field, and Reuven bought it from him. A father can do business with his son. Vigdisha. And then Reuven went ahead after he bought it and he was makdish. So he's now a purchaser of land, and he's makdish. He purchased his steyachuza, his father's steyachuza, his father's ancestral land, and he was makdish. And then afterwards, his father died. So now he yarshened this karka that he had bought anyway. So there's a different din for a stay achuza and a purchased land. A stay achuza has a din which he does with a stay achuza you pay at 50 shekels for each base core. Masha Enkein, a purchased land, you make a cheshbon of how many years it is till it is. No, I'm sorry, you pay for the value. If it's a purchased land, you pay however much you paid for it. So this land has two aspects to it. On the one hand, this son bought it from his father, but in the end, his father died, so now it became again a stay achuza. So how do we know it's treated like an stay achuza? Sada she'ein ru'ya liyasada achuza yatzazu she'ru'ya liyasad stay achuza. Dear Rabbi Yehuda Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon would say, since this sada is not, even though he bought it, it has the potential to be a stay achuza, because if when his father dies, then it will be a stay achuza. So this is not going to be included in the din as a stay miknasa. A stay miknasa, ashalom is the achuzasai. If it's a stay mikna, if it's only a stay mikna, it doesn't have the potential to be a stay achuza. How do we know that if it was he says the other way, and it's saying what seems to be a very small chiddush. We should explain why you have to say this. If someone bought, if someone bought a karka from his father, steichus from his father died, and now he wants to, then he was makdish it. So it's a fully his steichuza at that point. So he's saying you might think since it came into his hands as a lekua, as a lekeach, maybe that even though his father died and now it's a steichuza, so he's saying that's the chiddush that it's steichuza. Sada she'ein sada steichuza. Yatzu she'yeh steichuza. Bilu Rabbi Yehuda Rav Shimon. Heicha the meis aviv achach disha lo tzricha kro. They hold you don't need a pasuk where his father already died. It was already a steichuz in his hand. Kietz kro heicha the disha achach meis aviv. They're only talking about the case where he's makdish and then his father died. Minalu. Ime kro. If you're saying they learn it out from the extra words of this pasuk, maybe it's coming to say the smaller chiddush of Rameh, which is a very small chiddush, that because when he got it, at that point it was still a stay mikna. So you couldn't learn that from the pasuk. The azi basar pigeon. It must be the reason why they hold it to stay achuz, because at the time that he's coming to be paid it, at that point, it's his father had already died, right? He had bought it, and then he was makdish, and then his father died. Doesn't make a difference that he had bought it before his father died, because they hold that afterwards it was the time of it was already at the time of pitching. It was his father died, so it was a steichuza. Amar of Zaktamar, Amar of Nachman Yitzchak, Lo'ilam ba'Amar of Yehuda Rishimon. Loy azli basa pigeon. No, the Gemara says it's not a raya. It's not necessarily true. It's only because over here it's not the way you're saying it that they hold bechlal that we go basa pigeon, and otherwise the pasuk would have been learned earlier. No, they have a pasuk here, and they say the pasuk tells you the pasuk is coming to tell you this extra chiddush. In kain lichtav krov v'mestei meknosa ashalei achuzase. Inam mistei achuzase. There's an extra limit in the pasuk, so it tells you both Rav Meir's din and this. Maya shaloi mistei achuzase. Eshenu elias stei achuza. Yatzu shenu elias stei achuza. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Shkayach.
All right, thank you so much. Wow.